Hi, welcome back to a special edition of the Megala Mukois, inspired by current events, the bravery and the resourcefulness of wonderful Jews in Israel. It's called The Phoenix, Mythology, Midrash, and a new unit in the IDF, Yechidat Of Hachol B'Tzahal. So the Phoenix is a firebird. We're going to talk about the mythology and of everything else about it. And it's a story of tanks that had been retired from use and brought back to life and put back into service of defending the Jewish people against its enemies. So people think the phoenix is a non-Jewish symbol. It goes back to Greek mythology. It's associated with the sun, a firebird. That's why the place in Arizona is called Phoenix, and their basketball team is called the Suns. And the phoenix flies close to the sun and maybe gets burnt. It lives a really long time. It dies in a combustion and comes back to life, or it decomposes. But it's about eternal life, resurrection, rebirth, and power of recreation. So the story in the Midrash goes back to Ma'aseh Bereshis, the creation of the world, and the Garden of Eden, and the forbidden fruit. And the verse says there, "Vatiten gam leisha imah beyochal," that Eve gave also to her husband to eat of the forbidden fruit with her, and he ate. Now those words say that she gave also to her husband, she had eaten it, but the structure of the Hebrew implies that there's something else included in to whom she gave to eat. So the Midrash says as follows, Gam ribui. She gave it also to the animals, the wild beasts, to the birds. All of them listened to her and ate from the forbidden fruit, so that not only did man become mortal, but all the animals too. There was one stubborn bird who wasn't going for it and did not listen to her. The name of that bird is called the chol, and it's the phoenix. And it's a pasuk in Eov that says, "V'kachol arbe yamim." I will have many long days like the chol bird. The Vei Rabbi Yani Amar Elif Shana Hu Chai lives for 1,000 years, and at the end of 1,000 years, fire comes out from its nest and burns it. Umishtayer bo kabeitza v'choizu megadol evorim v'chai. And then from the ashes, it reconstitutes itself and grows wings and comes back to life. Reb Yudin v'Reb Shimon Omer, Elef shanim chayil besoif elef shanim gufo kaleh knafav mitmartim umishtayer bo kabeitza v'choizu megadol evarim. Another version is that it lives for 1,000 years, its body decomposes, its wings fall off, and what's left is the size of an egg, but again, it comes back and grows and develops its wings and comes back to life. So that's the story of the phoenix bird. It goes all the way back to creation and to a certain element of our soul that is eternal, that no matter what happens, and if the whole world has gone crazy and turned itself upside down and doing everything forbidden, but there's a certain kabetza, there's the size of an egg within us that can withstand all the heat and all the confusion and will remain to fight another day. So it's a verse in Tehillim, in the book of Psalms, the Psalm number 103, Hamatzbi'a b'toy v'yech tischadesh kanesher nu'uraichi. So here it's associated with an eagle or a vulture who satisfieth thine old age with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. Rashi says, Tischadesh kanesher nu'uraichi, kanesher hazeh, shemechadesh knafav v'notza mishana l'shana, v'yesh midrash agada, al min nesher k'shemazkin chozer lena'aruto. Rashi cites the way eagles' feathers come back year after year, and then he cites a Aggadic Midrash saying that there is a certain bird that lives a very long time and returns to its youth. The Radak goes further, Tischadesh kanesher nu'uraichi, im habriois mischadesh u'mischalef, ve'amar kanesher, omrim, it is said, it's a legend, Ki hanesher mitchalef le'eser shanim. It lives for 10 years. Vayaleh me'od al pnei rakia shamayim. Then it flies very high into the heavens. V'karev lechom ha'esh ha'yesodi. and it gets too close to this supernal fire, v'yapilat smo b'yam, and that causes it to descend down into the ocean, mirov chom v'yamot, and it dies there. V'yischadesh v'yaleh ever v'yashuv limei alumav, but then it comes back to life and returns to its youth. V'chein kol eser shanim, and this is a 10-year cycle which repeats itself, ad mea, 10 times until 100. V'ksheyagia lemea, yalek minago v'yipol b'yam v'yamut sham. So the Radak has a little bit different version of the Midrash, or the legend of the phoenix bird, this 10-year cycle that goes on for 10 times and maybe 10 times that, and then it comes to an end. So that's the phoenix bird in the book of Psalms. It appears also in the book of Job, Eov. Then I said, I shall die with my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the phoenix. And Rashi, he brings here, v'chachol arbe yamim, of ushmo chol, v'lo niknasa alav mita, shelo ta'am me'etz hadat, ulbesof 1000 shana mitchadesh v'chozer lena'aruto. So Rashi brings the Midrash here, that there's a special bird, we call it the phoenix, the Hebrew is the chol, and it was not penalized, it was not punished with mortality, with death, because it refused to eat from the forbidden fruit. And so after 1,000 years, it goes through a renewal and returns to its youth. So this is the legend and the Midrash and the Psukim, the Bible that cites the phoenix bird. And just to show you a story about its Jewish content, there's Jack Lipschitz was a world famous sculptor, and he had been commissioned by Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem to make a sculpture of the phoenix bird, and he passed away in the middle, and his wife wanted to finish the project for his memory and to put up the phoenix, and people said, you can't do that. The phoenix, what kind of legend is that? It's Goisha. You want to put it in Yerushalayim? No way. So she went to the Rebbe. She and her husband had become Chabadnikim, and the Rebbe said, what do you mean it's a non-Jewish thing? Bring me a Sefer Eov and I'll show you. It's in chapter 29. So the Rebbe explained to Mrs. Lifshitz the Midrashic commentary on the verse, which describes this chol as a bird that lives for 1,000 years. It dies and is later resurrected from its ashes. So the Rebbe taught Mrs. Lifshitz, and sure enough, if you go to Hadassah Har HaTzofim, you see this sculpture of the chol, the phoenix bird. So now I want to tell the great and inspiring story of this newest unit in Tzahal, the Israeli Defense Forces, tank unit. I think a lot of it is owed to this great guy, Major Dan Levitt. He's a high-techist. He's in high-tech in Israel. He's like VP development in a successful company. And Israel, after October 7th, everybody felt pretty awful about what had happened, and people who had been in the military particularly were frustrated by the fact that they weren't there to protect the people around Gaza. And so Israel, ultimately went in after a number of weeks into Gaza, but they realized that they were short on tanks. There had been a wrong conception in the management of the Israeli army on all levels regarding where we needed to put resources. They did a real lot of smart technology, and that's great, but we need still boots on the ground, and you need tanks and guns, and they went short on that, and we're still paying for that. Anyway, they were short on tanks, and so this Dan Levitt said, well, what about the old retired tanks? And I think there were 90 of them. And he said, let me take a look at them, and they gave him a team of mechanics, and they brought these tanks back to life. They got spare parts, and they sent out a call through a WhatsApp group of old soldiers, retired soldiers, who would come and fight in these tanks and fix these tanks, drive them, and bring them into battle. And they got 650 Israelis, people around my age, people who had fought in the 90s in Lebanon, and used these tanks. And they came back now to hear the call of duty, to restore honor to Israel and to the army, and to express their faith in the eternality of the Jewish people and our place here in the Promised Land. So they mamish got these tanks ready and fight worthy. And today they're defending us on the border with Gaza and even in Gaza. The phoenix is a symbol of resurrection of the dead. Here, it was in Harry Potter. I'm not a Harry Potter person, but that was cited by some of them. Here's an old guy. You see, he looks too old to be in war, but People are fighting to defend our land, and there's one of the tanks rolling into action. So I just want to share, some people maybe not familiar with the idea of resurrection of the dead, or they think it's a Christian thing, but the Rambam has 13 ikarim, 13 principles of the faith, the creed. You have to believe them. If you don't believe in one of the 13 articles of the faith, you got a problem, okay? So the 13th, the last one is Animamin Bemuna Shlema. She'atiyeh Tchias HaMeisim, Beis HaBoris Baruch Shmo, Yisbaruch Shmo V'Yis'ala Zichro La'ad U'Netzach Nitzachim. I believe with complete faith that there'll be a resurrection of the dead at the time that it is willed by the great Creator. May His name be blessed forever and ever. So the details of Tchias HaMeisim we'll have to wait and see, but we believe in it, that everybody's going to come back. I'll just say a word of theology about it. If right now we do mitzvahs with our body and our soul, so in order to be fully rewarded for the mitzvahs we do, you got to put together the body and the soul. So when we die, the body decomposes in the grave and the soul goes up to the heaven, and the soul will then be nana miziva shchina. The soul will enjoy the bliss of being close to God, and that's wonderful. But what about the body? The body also deserves reward for all its hard work in doing Torah and mitzvahs in this world. The body also needs to be rewarded. So for the complete resolution and for the compensation of the body and soul together, they'll be reunited. At a time in the future, body and soul will come back and will then live forever in a reunification of body and soul at a time of Tchias HaMeisim, resurrection of the dead. Let it be soon in our days. The future of Israel has yet to be written. Nobody knows what's going to be, but it's clear what was will not be. Israel will arise anew from the embers of the past, but it's going to be embedded within our eternal values, not estranged from them. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic on the long term that although we have enemies all around us, our friends are fence sitters, they're mitigating their stuff, but God is on our side. We're doing the right thing. Animami Me'emunah Shlema, B'nitzchonam Shel Yisrael, in Jewish victory. And in the Geula Shlema, the world is weak. The world is full of wickedness. And the people who aren't as bad as those wicked are afraid to stand up to them. It's a terrible time. But it's a time where we see the crumbling of civilization. And that leaves an opening for Melech HaMashiach to arise and lead the whole world to a better day. Let it be soon. Thanks for being with me. Looking forward to seeing you next time.